Tonight, Solo Sikoa was supposed to acknowledge Roman Reigns. So that was the big talking point going into this episode of Monday Night Raw, was the fact of, will Solo Sikoa acknowledge Roman Reigns? Because obviously they had the match last week between Solo and Jay, and Jay got the win. So now everybody was kind of on the side of like, what's gonna happen with Solo Sikoa? Is he actually gonna acknowledge Roman? Is he going to end the babyface run? Is he going to turn heel? And tonight, and I have been on the side of, I haven't been relatively a big fan of this Bloodline 2026 reunion, Bloodline 2026 lore, simply for the fact of it's reheated goods. It's literally like reheating one of your favorite dishes, and it's not as good as originally thought. But WWE, they rely heavily on the Bloodline still in 2026, when this story first originated in 2020. So that's kind of my piece on that. But tonight, I felt like tonight was probably the better one of the better segments from the Bloodline 2026 that we've had. Tonight, the crowd was heavily invested in what they were doing with Solo Sikoa, with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns called out Solo Sikoa, and up to this point, Roman and the Usos, you don't really know what they've been, right? You don't really know if they're baby faces, if they're heels, if they're tweeners. You don't really know what they are up until tonight, because tonight was clear. Roman Reigns and the Usos are clear as day heels. And obviously, they're still teasing the tension between Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns. I think eventually, when Roman does lose the title to possibly Obafemi, maybe that's when Jacob Fatu kind of rises up against Roman Reigns and maybe leads his own faction. I mean, we know Zilla is already signed to NXT, to WWE. We know he's not long for that NXT world. I assume he's gonna come in and have a factor with the Bloodline on TV. But tonight, Solo Sikoa, they had the option. They gave him the option to either fully reunite back with this family, with Roman Reigns and the Usos, or go against the grain, so to speak, because LA Knight came out there to kind of, I guess, even out the odds, even though it was literally the entire Bloodline against LA Knight. They attack LA Knight, but Solo Sikoa does the interesting thing and spikes Roman Reigns. And this crowd, like, I know it's on a lesser scale of kind of what Sami Zayn did to Roman Reigns so many years ago at the Royal Rumble, but it's kind of something along those lines where, they kind of trolled you or swerved you. But now I think with Solo Sikoa being a babyface here, I think it fully kind of goes against possibly an LA Knight win, because if LA Knight was ever going to win that world title, especially from Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank, because I presume that's where they're going to have the match between Roman Reigns and LA Knight. If he's ever going to win, those chances, those odds and everything has just gone out the window, because Solo Sikoa, they would have saved that major swerve for an event like that and for LA Knight to win possibly the world title. But again, I am not convinced that LA Knight is going to win the world title, so that's why I say this, because I'm kind of privy to what WWE is doing. But as far as Solo Sikoa and the babyface run, I'm very happy that they that they didn't really just keep Solo as a member 100% in the Bloodline, because again, I feel like everybody knows that Solo is a very charismatic guy, and holding him back in the Bloodline stable when he's genuinely outgrowing the Bloodline stable, it's kind of counterproductive. So that was nice to see between everybody here in the main event segment. We also had some very good wrestling here on this show. We had Chad Gable against Rey Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship. I genuinely, within the last 5 minutes or so of this match, I genuinely thought that Rey, they were going to belt up Rey, but I was like, why would they belt up Rey? I was like, maybe they would belt him up because maybe, eventually when Dominic faces him and eventually down the road, they want the IC title to be involved. I don't know. That's kind of my rationale that I had here. But Chad Gable got the win. Very good match between these two guys. They also have the Roman Reigns Luchador tournament. I don't really know what they're calling this tournament, but that's what I'm going to call it. I have a problem with this. It's fine to introduce these guys on television. They have the whole AAA partnership, so they obviously want to get every penny's worth out of them. But one thing I will say is I don't really care about this tournament because I think everybody knows who's going to win this tournament, and everybody knows what's going to happen to the winner of this tournament. That's going to be Penta, right? Penta's obviously going to win, and Penta's obviously going to wrestle Roman Reigns, and Penta is obviously going to eat a spear against Roman Reigns. It's very much like I know the outcome of everything, and that alone doesn't have me on the edge of my seat. I feel like we're just kind of wasting time until we get some Money in the Bank, and then that's when they have the LA Knight feud pop up once again. I genuinely, that's how I feel. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Let me know down in the comments. But post your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of tonight's episode of Raw. And until next time, I will see all of you on the next one.